Okay, so when you guys are ready to go and you're finally ready to do some sculpting, I'm gonna add a layer like we did. Make sure don't do the same mistake I made before. Um, so you're gonna get right into sculpting. All right, so you're like, yeah, sweet, whatever. And parts of this are actually pretty good polygon kind of quality wise, like just for smooth stuff. But then if I try and do like an imprint, right? I tried this one before. It just looks terrible, right? I mean, that one sucks anyways, but if I did something better, if I was making rocks, that's not really good quality stamping there. So you may need to increase the density of your mesh, the poly count of your mesh, right? So typically what I tell people is if you're working on something like a character, something really organic, start at the lowest subdivision setting you have, and then make as many changes as you can. So if you're doing a character, mess around with proportions, big cheekbones, big changes like that before you start subdividing, because it's really hard to start working on those big details once your mesh is really high poly. But when you're working with environment art, you could just go right to high poly stuff and just ding up little things. So if you want to add a subdivision level to your mesh here, you go to Mesh, Mesh, and then do Add Subdivision Level or Shift D. And this may take a few seconds, depending on, the more you add, obviously the slower it'll be and heavier it'll be on your machine. So we're going to go from 5.9 million polys to probably like 20. All right, let's go. Unmapping. I don't care about unmapping. All right. Like I said, depending on your machine, it'll definitely take different amounts of time. Can you tell me you're at 100% and still be working? Come on, baby, you could do it. Well, while this is doing this, let's take a Pokemon break and see if Pokestops are available. Still loading. I want my Pokemons. When it asks you for your email account, it's not going to work properly. No, that's not going to work. Sack of shit. Let me play the game I downloaded illegally. Hey, it's done. Okay, cool. So now I'm at, what am I at? 11 million polys? That's not bad. I thought it was going to be a little higher. All right, well, my frame count took a dip. I'm down to 8 frames a second. Yeah, so again, my machine kind of sucks for doing high poly stuff, but that's fine. So first thing you'll notice is my sculpt layer has a little no smoking sign on it all of a sudden, or no sculpting, if you will. Huh?
You should never smoke.
You should never smoke, especially in 3D. So what that means is I added this layer on a different subdivision level. So that means I can't continue to sculpt because I've made my mesh higher poly. If I can always drop up and down subdivision levels by hitting page up, page down. I won't do it because it'll take forever. And it'll let you sculpt on whatever level you made. So all you're going to have to do is just add a new layer, and then that will let you sculpt on this one. Now if we go in here and we try the imprint thing again, Again, my machine is really shitty, so please bear with me. Next year, definitely going to need a new machine. I don't think it will be able to handle Max 2018. Oop. Alright. Change my fall off here. Fall off also affects your stamping and stuff like that. So if you notice here, see how my stamp is nice and smooth? It's just kind of like subtly there. It's because I went on my fall off and picked a really smooth one. If I pick a really strong one, it'll show the edges of that brush, which is not something that you really want because you just want to add little details at a time. So if you do a nice soft fall off, even like a linear one like that, you'll get a much nicer look. Now, because I subdivided this mesh, these details are finally starting to come in a little bit higher poly. Now, if I was on a better mesh and I was making rocks on this piece of metal, I would probably subdivide it some more, right? You definitely don't want to see these jaggedy bits too much. You know, because all that stuff will get captured in your normal map, and it's just not going to look very good. So you want to get as high poly as you can get, where you can't notice any of that kind of stuff. To a certain degree, obviously, you know, you got to know how far away you're going to be looking at your crate. My crate was for like a little top-down game, and you know, this was the size on screen. That's fine, right? You can't tell all that jaggediness in there, so that's okay. But really, all I'm really going to be doing on this this crate here is I'm going to be using my scrape tool with a fairly small brush here, and I'm just going to move in, and I'm just going to ding up some edges. So I'm just going to go in here, maybe pick a bit of a harsher brush, maybe a bit of a smaller brush too, maybe a bit stronger, and I'm just going to ding up some edges. Right, nothing too crazy.
Just subtle enough to break up the...
Yeah, you just don't want these perfectly straight lines, right? Like this crate, you know, didn't just come out of the warehouse. You know, even if it did, it probably still wouldn't be perfect, right? So just enough to add a couple little tiny nuances. Yeah, it doesn't have to be a ton, right? All this stuff will get captured into the normal map. So just go in there. And again, it all depends on what the object is you're working on, what kind of history or whatever you're kind of given to it. If this crate's been in, you know, war times, it's like ready to retire, then you could, you know, beat the shit out of it, add some bullet holes in it.
Shell casing.
Yeah, right? Like, yeah, add a bunch of like shotgun shell pellets onto it. You know, if you're putting it in like a jungle-y setting, maybe throw some scratch marks on it from some knives or some Wolverines, you know, whatever it happens to be. Right? I mean, if this guy's like iron or some sort of other steel and it's rusting, then you might want to start thinking like, okay, well, where would this thing rust naturally? Where would water stick around, right? So, you know, maybe around the edges, you would have parts that are starting to rust through, and you can make those a little bit more bubbly. Maybe even start, you know, fully dinging them up, like they're all broken up and rusting through if it's like a really old crate. If you wanted to make this crate for like a post-apocalyptic game where, you know, maybe the military was moving in some city trying to fight off some zombies or shit, and it's like 50 years later, and it's overgrown to hell and like, you know, beat up and crapped on and whatever, right? So it all depends on what kind of scene you're setting up, right? If you're just doing some little dings and things like that, right, that's fine. But again, it all depends on what you want to do. So yeah, so I like the scrape tool for doing this little edge work. Now, we talked a little bit about Substance, and basically Substance does all this shit for you. You bring in this mesh into Substance, and you're like, hey, find my edges. And it's like, okay, cool, here's your edges. You're like, what do you want to do with them? You're like, ding them, and it dings them. So it makes our job a lot easier. But I wanted to do the Mudbox way, because we're going to be doing things kind of an old school way in some ways, because...
Not everyone has Substance.
Yeah, not everyone has Substance, and it's good to learn like why we do this stuff and really like what Substance is doing for you. You know, you'll appreciate the work it's doing for you and all that. So, whatever, ding it up. I'd probably ding it up maybe a little bit more. So you could do things like, say I wanted to do scratches. I'm going to start a new layer here. Maybe. Oh, wait, I'm just clicking the eyeball. That's not anything. Okay, so do some scratches. I could use something like the knife tool. Right, so say I wanted to have a big old scratch over here. Now it's really steppy and kind of shitty looking. Now that could be two reasons. It could be the poly count. It could be the fall off, right? So let's do a bigger brush size. Could be like, yeah, too small of a brush. Right, could be the fall off. So if I wanted a steep fall off, right? Oh, kind of went over that. Now the other thing that it might also be is sometimes you're going to want to make some like either interesting designs. So let's say you wanted to make a scrape that, maybe like, I don't know, whatever, for whatever reason is smoother. Under your brush settings here, if you scroll down, there's more options. So there's stamp spacing. So how often does it put a stamp in there? So make sure you're not using a stamp or a stencil, right? It's just nice and clean. So under your brush, sorry, let me go back to my knife. So you could do spacing, so we can play around with that a little bit. Snap to curve. And this guy here, this is called steady stroke. It's called lazy mouse in Mudbox. And what this will do is you'll have this green arrow, and what happens, it's kind of weird to use, but you can move around and it'll follow that, and it'll try and smooth out your movements.
It's like pulling a dog on a leash.
Yeah, right? It'll, it's not going to do every little pull you do. It'll follow generally in that direction, right? So, if I wanted to do some really swirly stuff, right, that's okay. If I did not steady stroke, so let's do some tests here. Right, really shitty. Right, steady stroke on 4. A little better, right? A little smoother. If I did something, I don't know how crazy this will get. I think my computer just kind of sucks. But so the longer you make it, the bigger that trail will be. Sometimes it's really hard to use on like a really huge one. But even let's try something like 5. Yeah, you can start getting some nicer, smoother designs. I think my computer frame rate can't just keep up with my lazy mouse there. But anyways, that's a really nice tool for getting really smooth kind of scrapes and things. So let's put a couple scrapes into this guy. Again, pen pressure is nice because I could go from thick to thin. Oh, not too much. That's a pretty big scrape. I could add some little ones here. All right, nothing wrong with adding them across some edges. This is actually, why is my knife protruding outwards? All right, a little bit bigger here. Definitely doesn't like a really small brush size. Maybe add a couple little guys going sideways here. Right, not all the scratches have to be from like animals and stuff. They could just be from wear and tear. So if you're working on something, let's say if this was in a scene and it was on a conveyor belt or a forklift was going to pick it up, or whatever it is, right? Start thinking about how things would interact with this. So if this thing's going to be, you know, if a forklift is going to pick it up on the side or something like that, or it's going to get slid up on the truck, well, you know, definitely edges are going to start getting worn off, right? So maybe there's going to be more scratches around the edges here, right? You know, these scratches kind of suck, but really start thinking about how your mesh is used in the real world. The more you think about stuff like that, the easier your job will be for sculpting and painting later on, because you won't really have to, like, you know, just make up stuff. You'll be like, oh yeah, okay, this is where people grab it, so this is where less paint is because it's worn off more because it's being used more. This is where scrape marks are because people are, whatever, resting guns on it or packing stuff in, whatever it happens to be. So really keep in mind, that'll really set your portfolio apart from other people too, if your stuff actually feels like it makes sense. If you're a character artist, that's a big thing too for muscles and things like that. If you're making up monsters and things like that, and your muscles don't make any sense, you know, potential employers will know, like, oh, well, this guy doesn't really know anatomy or put the time in to actually try and figure it out, and they don't want to do that. So, okay, so we have some really strong scratches. I could do a couple things. I could use the pinch brush. If I don't like some of these really high width and detailed brushes, I could do a couple things. I can make a small pinch. Something like that, maybe very strong, and I just pinch the actual sides of this scratch here. I try and get a harder edge there. Right, and like try to firm that up so I get nice harder edges there, and you know, might get a nicer look. I could also go over the entire scratch here with pinch and just start thinning it down if my brushes didn't really, like my brush pressure didn't quite work on it, work it really well. So I could just go here and just pinch this guy closed a little bit and start making these scratches feel a lot nicer, a lot cleaner. And we gotta smooth out some of that stuff. All right, so I'm gonna do the same thing here with these kind of rougher looking ones. Just pinch them down. Again, pinch tool can cause you some problems, but it's probably one of my favorite. So go through and do, you know, as much or as little as you feel you need to do to your scratches. And the nice thing is in Mudbox, if you feel that your scratches here are just too much, right? You gouged them out too much. Well, under your layer here, I can name my layer here scratches, and I'm like, you know what? That's too strong. I'm gonna make my scratches 50% of what they are. Go in there, and once it actually figures out whatever the hell you wanted, there we go. It made my scratches a lot lighter. If I only want them to be 5% of what they were, well, there we go. Now I could have really subtle little scratches. So, you know, it's nice to have that option of control once you're done. All right, so I'm gonna maybe, you know, work on these scratches a little bit more. All right, I kind of did really the bare minimum here, but sometimes with beating stuff up, if you're really trying to make your stuff still look kind of new and not overly used, you know, less is more. You don't want to overdo your stuff, that's for sure. So I might go back to my scrapes here. Ding things up a little bit. Right, just a few dings. The dings are nice because they'll read really well with like lighting and all that stuff. So what's the best Pokemon you guys have caught so far?
I have to look at my thing, but unfortunately I
Oh yeah, I guess you can't because it
Surface.
won't log in. Yeah.
Mine works. I just use the VPN.
Oh shit. Oops. What did I catch the other day?
What have you got?
I caught, what was a good one? I almost caught a Cubone the other day. I found one, but.
I hatched my Cubone.
Oh, did you? Oh, sweet. I hatched Dratini
Nice.
and Almanite or whatever it's called. The, like, seashell, snail shell looking
Yeah,
motherfucker. Yeah.
Praise it.
Huh?
Praise it.
Yeah. So I got that guy. Caught a Jigglypuff the other day. That was pretty sweet. I've only seen a couple of them.
One got away from me one time. I was like,
Mine was
it
close.
was at 2 steps and it was like, hey,
I hate that. Right? That's what the Cubone did to me too. Oh, I caught an Onyx. That was probably my craziest one. It wasn't even. I guess I was using an incense, I think, but I was just walking around and it wasn't on my nearby list. And it was just like, bam, Onyx.
That happened to me with Tauros.
Yeah. I caught a few really good Tauros. I caught a level like 400 Tauros.
Same here.
Yeah.
First Tauros I caught, it's like 400.
It took like 8 Pokeballs. I did not want to go home.
The Pidgeot I caught just did not want to catch.
Yeah, some of them are little assholes. My girlfriend caught an Abra. I'm super jealous. I want an Abra so bad.
I saw someone on Facebook calling you.
No, they didn't.
No, they didn't. It was probably a fake.
Apparently.
Apparently they caught it. I saw one that basically said, you can catch it if you go under a truck.
Nice. What else?
The best one I have is a Jinx.
Yeah, I caught a Jinx the other day too. They're slippery little guys.
Yeah.
I saw a couple good ones.
Drowsies all over my.
Oh, yeah.
all over
Yeah,
my-
drowsies are everywhere. Drowsies, Rattatas,
Pidgeys.
Pidgeys, Spearows.
But it's I just like, I'm like, huh, fuck it, I'm just gonna go out and search around my house.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm like surrounded by like 3 Jinx. I'm like,
Sweet. I caught a Slowbro the other day and a Seal. That was pretty good. I saw a Geodude, but
yeah,
just on my nearby.
I caught a Geodude by my place.
I saw a Haunter the other day, and he, like, the last couple days, I don't think the nearby stuff has been working.
Yeah.
It's just been like 3 steps for everything.
And sometimes like, I think the previous version I got is working, but it might just be because.
Yeah. I mean, it's a giant worldwide online game. I'm totally fine with problems for the first, like, few months. It's expected. If it worked properly, I'd be worried. Like, something's not right.
This is working properly. I'm afraid.
I like the theories that the government paid for Pokemon Go to, like, keep track of everybody.
Yeah.
Like, damn, that'd be really smart of them.
They can do that already.
Yeah, exactly.
That whole thing where they can apparently track all your information to Pokemon Go.
Yeah. I think they fixed that in the new patch.
Yeah, it was specifically for the iOS version.
Yeah. So yeah, Android, you would have that if you got a bad APK, like people were just hacking it and putting up APKs with like different permissions. And the permissions would just like allow them to do whatever.
Pretty
Check
much.
all your stuff. So I checked mine. I had an okay one.
Same here.
I think most of them. I mean, it seemed like as long as you got it from like a decent APK place.
The biggest one was
Mirror.
APK Mirror.
The what, sorry?
The biggest one was APK Mirror.
Yeah.
Downloading from.
Yeah. Okay, let's see here. I've dinged up this guy. So once you're done, you know, obviously spend as much or as little time in here as you feel you need to. And once you're ready to go, just select your mesh. You can go into your object, select your dude. I mean, you don't have to select them if all you have is one object, but just go to File, Export Selection. If you have multiple ones, export all your different high polyness. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to save because I haven't saved this entire class.
That'd be a good idea.
Yeah, considering my machine like restarted on me, I should probably be doing that more often.
I like how it says in the game, be aware of your surroundings, and
Oh,
then you
yeah.
just hear stories about everybody just
Here's a really bad story.
by heart.
The one that the guy that hit the tree.
I didn't hear about that one, but there's this girl who's like a hermit, and because of Pokemon Go, she went and walked in a street and got hit by a car or something.
Oh.
And it was the game's fault because she's a hermit. She wouldn't have been outside.
At least it got her out.
Yeah, that's what her mom was saying.
Was the one thing the guy stopped in the middle of a highway to catch a Pikachu or something?
I think that one was fake. I saw that one too. Yeah, I think that one was fake.
It was like in Massachusetts.
Yeah, there was a guy who hit a tree dead on and like just wrapped the front of his car around it.
That's just like, okay, guys.
Hey, as long as he caught the Pokemon, it was worth it.
There was a Pidgey.
Yeah, I really need that Weedle.
Sometimes I question
What I
humanity.
find insane is how many freaking magic cards it takes
Mm-hmm.
to evolve into Gyarados.
You gotta catch what, like 100 and something Magikarp?
137.
Yeah.
Just to evolve it into Gyarados.
I'd rather not.
Holy shit, it's
my
awesome.
Friend, my friend is doing it. He went down to port and he's just catching all the Magikarp he can.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I have like 10 or so. Getting there.
You're more likely to actually see a Gyarados than catch all of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I caught a Slowbro the other day. That was pretty sweet. By the canals. There was a slow poke, but he was behind the fence that you weren't allowed to go through. I'm like,
There's a
oh.
Starry zone by my. I was out there. Starry. I was like, oh, there's a Starry. Where is it? Across the damn. There's
Yeah.
near my place. It's across the stream. Like, I ain't. No.
Start swimming.
Yes, sir. Yeah, we gotta go for
I
it.
don't have a waterproof case.
It's funny.
Was I heard there's like a gym in the middle of the ocean.
Oh, that's awesome. On like an oil rig or something.
Rented a boat out and like claimed it.
That's awesome. Apparently, there's one at Area 51. Some soldier like posted it, and he's like, "It's my gym." No one's gonna take it
No one's
over.
ever gonna take it.
And what was the other one? I read the other day, or I think it was today on BBC. This guy in New Zealand quit his job. I mean, he was like a barista at a Starbucks or something. Quit his job to become a full-time Pokemon trainer.
That's taking it a little far.
Yeah, that's a little far. I mean, if there's a way to earn money, sure, but
There's no way to be like. I understand. It's been our dream since childhood.
that's what he said. And his parents were like, "It's weird, but at least he's doing stuff."
The thing is, how is he going to pay for it after the next month?
It's fine. What was the other thing I read?
Is it a paid thing? Microtransactions?
Yeah,
It's not that. It's data.
yeah.
That's what I'm thinking.
There is microtransactions, but oh, that's right.
I don't think Pokemon Go uses a whole lot of data.
No, it seemed like it was a lot at first, but then I looked at what it was using. It was like way less than Facebook or Twitter.
Yeah, I'm talking about him paying for his phone bill.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, you want to do that? Now, sit by your phone.
Yeah. Alright, so I'm going to export my crate. I usually throw in like an underscore mud or something in there on the OBJ just so I know it's the one from Mudbox, just if you still have a high poly that you like exported from 3D Max. Sometimes good to have a little bit of backups. Cool, so that's it. We're going to export it, and it's just going to sit there until we're ready to bake some maps. So we're going to jump into 3D Max and start doing some low poly stuff. I know.
Did you die?